Hey everybody, this is Matt, Neum, and Addie from Real Clear English. Good to see you guys.
Hi guys. So an amazing thing happened in our household lately for the past year actually. Whenever I need to read on a particular topic, I would just tell Maddie, "Hi honey, can you find me a book on parenting, but not the how to, not the what to expect during the first year, but really something that give me the philosophical framework into being a mom to a new baby." And or Maddie, I want to read something about business because we just opened our own company now, and then or yeah, and then he would go to our local bookstore. We have a good English bookstore in Bangkok, and a good local English library, and would bring back amazing books. And I don't know, I think I
How does he do it?
how do you
How
do
Well, we've talked about this. You asked me, how I choose books for myself too when I go to the bookstore or the library, and I guess choosing books is something I've done more than just about anything else in my life. So I do have a bit of a method now, and I think it boils down to this. I start flipping through a book, and the first thing that usually has to happen is I have to respond to the author's voice. Typically the authors that I like the most are the ones who are comfortable being a little quirky, but also really, really accurate, really excellent at expressing things really precisely, maybe talking about ideas that are unfamiliar or provocative. Most of all, it's usually got to be the voice of somebody that I would like to spend time with, that I trust immediately, that I feel is being honest.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I read the books that you choose. I these may be big names, these may not be big names, but there's always the consistency of these are different authors, but the consistent quality is that I don't feel looked down upon as a reader. There's an integrity of the voice. There's a lightness of the voice of each author. Yeah, that's true. Do you want Mr. Anson? Maybe you want to get out of this. And so I would love to give you guys an example.
We'll set you free, honey.
Yeah.
Why don't you take her outside the room and come back and keep going?
Maybe she can also be here.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of authors out there. There's a lot of books out there that are written for other reasons, right? Written because the author wants to be famous, or because the author's got a fresh idea, or whatever it might be. But I think writing and publishing are such prestigious things, at least for some people, that the drive to write a book can sometimes drown out the desire to speak honestly.
Right.
But so if I think we tend to respond to the same types of books, the same types of voices, but then typically it has to be a topic or an area of interest that we have as well. So there are a lot of great writers who write about topics that I'm not particularly compelled by. So, and life is short. So typically I want a voice that I trust on a topic or an area of interest that matters to me, right? Some place that I can grow, some place that I want to push myself a little bit. I want to expand. So, and that can vary. Sometimes it's I want to read novels that expand my sense of what a novel can be and tell a story in a new way. Sometimes it's authors who are writing about topics that matter to me, like politics or history or philosophy. And so it's the same for you. When you ask me to choose a book for you, I think about, well, what kinds of authors do you respond to? What kinds of voices do you respond to? But I also think about what you believe right now, what your ideas are right now,
Right.
What topics you really care about right now. And I try to find books that acknowledge all of that, but then push just a little bit.
Yeah, I would give a fresh example right now. So we just started a company, and I found myself reaching out for other giants in the field, or other friends who are moms and who are doing the same thing, or who just simply ran their startup and ask for the advice. But then sometimes it feels like not enough. And Maddie came back with this book from the bookstore. I don't know whether.
Yeah, Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. So Tim Ferriss is the same guy who wrote The 4-Hour Workweek.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
The thing is, he's such a big name that I feel, a bit shy, because it becomes just too popular that I start to, raise my eyebrow at popular name. But this book, I just, it's a good book when you feel like, oh my God, it's bedtime already, but I still want to read. And I was at yoga and like, namaste, when can I go back to read my book? And so this is the bomb right there. And thank you for introducing me to this book, and also other authors throughout the years. I'll take another example. So I just learned Spanish, and Maddie, of course, I went to the bookstore and go to the language section, and there would be Barron's, there would be Kaplan. In this case, there are a lot of Collins and BBC. But Maddie chose this. Can you read that for me, Hannah?
Yeah, it's called Madrigal's Magic Key to Spanish, a creative and proven approach. So it even got drawings by Andy Warhol, the artist.
Yeah, I would totally bypass this detail. And the book and the approach of the book is not run-of-the-mill language course starting with ABC or starting with counting. It starts with what I know in English that can be transferable to Spanish. And it's so empowering.
I think there's something in common with both of these books have in common, which is, Tim Ferriss is a writer who is extremely practical, right? His first book, The 4-Hour Workweek, became famous because he basically decided that he didn't want a 9-to-5 job, and so he kind of life hacked a way not to have one, and then he wrote about his method. So he was solving a really profound personal problem, and then he shared his method. And this is the same, right? It's just interviews and summaries of what lots of people do to solve lots of different types of problems. He's got interviews with all kinds of famous, accomplished people. And I think there's something, and same here. There's the sense of, do you want to kind of do things by the numbers and by the book and according to the conventional standards? Or do you want to just name the problem that you have and then try to solve it in as direct and enjoyable a way as you can?
Yeah, and so I right now I have the book of the former example, which is a book that has big concepts, big intention, but then doesn't deliver well. And I feel shy about showing.
Let's not
Yeah.
Let's not slag off any books. We'll just talk about the good ones and leave the bad ones to.
Yeah, but then when Maddie chose not just for my books but also for Addie's books, I enjoyed so much. There's this book with the big ugly elephant, but it turns out it's not the drawing of the elephant that is the book. It's just the story of light-hearted community that elephants become a part of.
Yeah, I think when we choose books for her, there's it's interesting because that standard that we talked about earlier, it doesn't quite apply, right? I mean, we don't really know what she enjoys yet because she can't tell us, and it's hard to tell, what she's.
Soon.
Yeah, she's trying. But yeah, she's, sometimes she is quiet and sometimes she slaps the book, but it's hard to know what that means just yet. And she also doesn't have interests in the same way that we do. Like, in some sense, she has every interest. She's exploring everything all at once, but she doesn't have concepts that she's trying to challenge or, philosophical ideas yet. So in some sense, I don't think it even matters what we expose her to. Like, as long as the message we think is something basically healthy, we can expose her to lots of stuff, and eventually she'll have tastes, and we'll be able to introduce her to things that we think she'll like more specifically.
So between me and Addie, I also have seen students who have benefited from your nudge. Sometimes I can see that you, one of the services that you offer for students is to see where they are and to suggest books that, number one, expand on their interest, or number two, gently explore their blind spots.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of students, I meet a lot of students who have to read a lot, but don't necessarily like to read, right? They have to read because they're required to in school. And in some sense that, for many of them, the fact that school is just full of this high stakes assignments that could affect their future makes it harder for them to just enjoy what they're reading or appreciate it for what it is. But there are some students who, have managed to hold on to a love or appreciation for books, or even develop one. And for those students, it's really fun to introduce them to things that they haven't seen yet. So I think we were talking earlier about a student I had a couple years ago who was really into political philosophy. So she had just started to read Plato, which most high school students don't do. So Plato is more or less the father of Western political philosophy, or philosophy in general. And she had, some really strong ideas about him. She'd encountered his ideas, and some of them just sounded just right to her. She thought she'd found the answers to some really big questions. But she was also kind of spoiling for a fight. She wanted to argue, she wanted to be challenged, she wanted to challenge me back. And so it was great fun to introduce her to, there's any number of authors who've come since Plato. One in particular I like is named Will Durant, who's written a whole history of Western philosophy. But we, in her case, we talked about lots of different authors. I introduced her to books that I thought would challenge her certainties about Plato in ways that she would understand and that would resonate with her, because they were coming from a more modern perspective. And that's a fun thing to be able to do. I've spent most of my life reading, so most topics that come up, I've often got some author that I love that I can't wait to share, with students, and that I think for a lot of students is much more enjoyable than I've got to write another term paper for. Yeah, writing term papers kind of sucks.
Yeah, and so with that, I think Addie wants to wrap up.
Yeah, we should wrap up. It's time. So we'll see you guys very soon.
Next time, guys. Goodbye.